Hey everyone, it's time to Nerfs and chill. In this video, I'll be breaking down all 5 weeks of the public test server patch notes for the upcoming Update 32, or otherwise known as the Deadlands DLC for the Elder Scrolls Online. And this is only in regards to class changes, buffs, nerfs, fixes, and so forth. So let's start with Nightblade. Nightblade has been getting quite a bit of attention this PTS cycle. So the first buff Nightblade is going to get is going to be Path of Darkness buff, or rather specifically, the Twisting Path Morph. This ability's damage now scales dynamically with the highest of your offensive stats. This is a huge buff for Stamina Nightblades, especially in PvE. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see the potential of this in raids as well for Stamina Nightblades. The second change that is coming to Nightblades is going to be the Dark Cloak change. It is a morph of Cloak, or Shadowy Disguise. Increase the healing from this ability by approximately 61% per tick, but reduce the base duration to 3 seconds down from 6, so it's definitely much more of a bursty heal over time. They also increased the duration of the minor protection to 10 seconds, up from 6, and fixed an issue where it was not being affected by the Dark Veil passives. And on a side note, that 3 seconds is going to be longer due to one of the Nightblade passives, so pretty interesting to see how well this will go for either Magicka and Stamina Nightblades, especially in PvP, but also this is going to be a very significant buff, I feel like, for Nightblade tanking in PvE, so definitely very excited to see how this is going to turn out for next patch for tanks. Summon Shade, or Shadow Image Morph. The ability's initial cast that summons a shade can no longer be cast while in the air. The special activated teleport to your shade can still be cast while in the air, and can now be cast while falling from a great height. And there's a developer note on this one because this will fix situations where your shade could get spawned midair and cause you to basically get stuck somehow, teleport you to areas you don't belong, and they still want you to feel like you can juke people midair. There's a very well-known thing to do with Nightblade Shade is to jump off a bridge in Zerodead and have someone chase you off the bridge, and then you can just cast Shade and port back as they fall alone. So pretty cool. Alright, so Grim Focus. This ability in Morphs now grants 60 weapon and spell damage per stack, rather than 1% damage done per stack. The 1% damage done per stack is referring to the week 1 PTS changes where they did take away the critical damage and critical healing away from Grim Focus due to the critical cap changes, which I covered in a different video if you guys want to go check that out. And instead they said, okay, well that doesn't seem to be enough, or and also kind of weakens the other areas of Nightblade, especially for things like PvP or even healing. So they decided to instead grant 60 weapon and spell damage per stack. That is 300 more weapon and spell damage total at 5 stacks of Grim Focus. So it is going to slightly edge out, very slightly edge out that 1% damage done per stack, but also give you, again, more strength in other departments for the Nightblade class. So again, this is basically a buff. Obviously it's a nerf, step down from the critical damage and healing, but that's also within the context of the critical damage cap coming with Update 32 as well. And a very interesting change happened about week 4 to 5. Malevolent Offering. So this ability and Morphs now have an upfront magic cost of 3,510 and a residual health cost of 1080 over 3 seconds, rather than the health cost based on the mixture of your spell damage and max magic over 8 seconds. So judging from comments on one of my last videos, a lot of people have mixed feelings about this because they did like the previous version, but also there's some people who are looking forward to using this even more. So we'll see how this turns out on live. These abilities can now target yourself and allies rather than only allies. So I think that in a sense that can be better for a mixed bag of people. And they also rewarded a tooltip, and I will show the tooltip on the screen here if you guys want to read that as I read off the next morph change. Shrewd Offering. This ability now ranks up in cost reduction rather than 1.1% healing done, and its base cost has been reduced to 3,240 Magicka. The residual health cost also lasts 1 second less, causing it to drain less health to ensure its total cost. So basically, it's just going to give you more sustain as opposed to the other morph, I'm assuming. And the developer comment on this is that, hey, you guys haven't really used these abilities a lot compared to the other abilities available. So we're gonna try experimenting with the health cost of the ability, plus adjusting aspects of the ability to where it can heal you as well, including your allies. But also sustain-wise will be pretty interesting to see. And they did say we decided to switch this ability over to a dual cost skill, with the brunt of its cost being on the magical side of things and the rest of it filling with health. And this is the part where a lot of people seem to have mixed feelings. People like the fact that it costs health more over Magicka. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. Dragonknight buffs, changes, nerfs. Dragonknight, similar to Nightblade, got a lot of attention. Recently I made a what's the worst class in ESO video, and I went over Stam DK in PvE, Stam DK in PvP compared to Stam Crow, Stam then whatever. And yeah, it was in a pretty bad spot, and we'll see if Update 32 is going to bring this class back up to the front in both PvP and PvE. So the first change they did was the Combustion, which is the sustain passive on Dragoknights. Increased resources granted from this passive to 1000 stamina or Magicka, up from 500. From testing on the PTS, this is a relative buff, but they did add a cooldown of 500 milliseconds to each effect, which are separately tracked from one another to make up for the above increase in the massive buff the charge trade is getting. And I'll talk a bit more about that buff perhaps later down the line, because it is becoming a lot more relevant, especially for DPS in PvE. So, but yeah, this is overall a slight buff. In Inferno, the ability and the Cauterized Morph now grant both major prophecy and savagery, and this is part of the massive hybridization changes coming with Update 32. And of course, the Morph Flames of Oblivion, instead of launching just 2 fireballs, it's going to launch 3 fireballs. So this is, again, a buff. And Lava Whip. And this is going to probably be the most controversial or heatly discussed changes coming to Stamina DK specifically. So Lava Whip. This ability is Morphs now scale off of your highest offensive stats, rather than exclusively Magicka-based stats. So Stam DKs are getting a kind of a Stam Whip, but it still costs Magicka to use. And they did also adjust the morphs. Flame Lash fixed an issue where this morph did not apply off balance to targets who were immobilized but not already off balance. The override ability, Power Lash, now heals immediately rather than over 2 seconds, but the total healing per cast has been reduced by approximately 43%. However, Power Lash no longer has a 3-second cooldown. Ballerinas are back, so it used to be we could spin around and around and around and keep pretty much proccing the Power Lash. They did reduce the healing per cast, but they did pretty much give us a increase in damage with removal of the 3-second cooldown, which is pretty nice. So we've kind of gone full circle from 2021 to about 2015, or 2016-ish, at the latest. Molten Whip, the Morph, Seething Fury now lasts 10 seconds per stack, up from 5 seconds, and this is going to be a pretty good change, especially for pre-buffing and also just for during the fight for Magicka DKs, or perhaps Stam DKs now, to help it feel way less stressful to use in rotation and allow for activation of burst at the perfect moment. So yeah, again, overall buffs, we still not kind of completely sure how Stam DK is gonna, how much potential damage Stam DK is gonna get out of the whip. For PvP, I have a suspicion it's gonna be pretty strong for Stam DKs, but also all these things are a buff for Mag DK as well. Not just in PvP, but also in PvE. For PvE, we'll see. Again, still testing things. And they did explain, again, developer comment here, that both Moors kind of felt the same. So they're just kind of emphasizing the different aspects of it at this point. And a couple more things that came to Dragonknight, which are very significant to talk about. They did buff World and Ruin passive, now increases your damage done with flame and poison attacks by 5%, rather than just AoE flame attacks by 6%. And this is huge, because, again, that's just a straight up damage buff. However, they also did remove the cost reduction of your poison abilities by 25%. So we'll see how this, again, meshes with Stam DK. It's a pretty unknown factor at this point, but with certain things like the charge trait or maybe specific glyphs, Stam DK and PvE may still have a chance. Earthen Heart also got a sort of readjustment here. So Ash Cloud, this is also a pretty huge skill change. This ability is morphs now cost 378 Magicka every second while active, rather than having a massive upfront cost of 5,670. So this is also, in theory, a good idea, because you often have to move a lot perhaps in PvE content, and especially in PvP. And if you want to set down your area of dominance, your area of safety, depending on the morph, Cinderstorm versus Eruption, it's going to cost a lot. Mag Decay is very notorious for having really bad sustain in regards to a lot of its skills, costing so much in such a dynamic environment of PvP and even sometimes PvE. So the upfront cost being removed, along with the magic cost every second, makes sense. And we'll see how this goes in practice. I know people have been kind of playing around with the cost reduction and stuff for this, and I think some people have gone to very, very low cost per second. So again, we'll see how this is going to work out. These abilities now take 15 times over the duration, down from 16, while their total damage or healing per cast remains relatively the same. These abilities now last 15 seconds at the base rather than 12, and they also buffed the healing and damage done per rank. And of course, the Eruption morph got a special treatment. The initial damage now has a 10-second cooldown to prevent it from turning into an incredibly low-costing AoE spammable. So they put some thought into this, obviously, because players will have abused the heck out of that. Battle Roar. This is also another significant change coming to Dragonknights in general for PvP and PvE. This passive now restores 50 health, magic, and stamina per ultimate consumed, rather than 46 health, magic, and stamina per the ultimate's cost. So the key word here is ultimate's cost versus ultimate consumption. What this means is DKs can hold on to their ultimate beyond the usual 250 or 200 or whatever, how much ultimate it costs to cast whatever you want. So assuming we're comparing at max 250 ultimate for Warhorn versus 500 ultimate for Warhorn, you're going to see a lot more sustain in general for both PvE, PvP, across the board for DKs as far as Battle Roar goes. Now let's talk about the next 4 classes, which did not get as much attention as Nightblade and Dragonknight this time around, but they still got some things. So Sorcerer, the only thing coming with Sorcerer is that they fixed an issue where the base ability of Lightning Splash was ending too soon and missing an extra tick of damage. Warden's Green Balance, let's see, Emerald Moss passive, it's basically the passive that grants you more healing done per Green Balance ability. Fixed an issue where the morphs of Healing Seeds were not properly contributing to this passive, so that's good to know. Necromancer, they did get a buff to the damage of Boneyard, where they increased the damage of the ability and morphs by approximately 10% per tick, since they tick 10 times instead of 11 after a change in update 30. Okay, so that's okay, no key buff. And then lastly, Templar. Oh, Templar. Alright, let's look. Spear Shards fixed an issue where this ability and morphs were ending slightly too soon, causing them to miss an extra tick of damage. Okay, so it's kind of similar to the Lightning Splash change, which is okay. Dawn's Wrath, Backlash, this ability and morph's visual effects are now visible to the casters and enemies rather than anyone. That's sort of a cleanup on the visual effects, and I think on that note, we can still do a lot better, in my opinion, in terms of cleaning up more visual effects, but that's a story for another time. Restoring Light, Cleansing Ritual, increase the scaling coefficients on this ability and morphs by approximately 17%, since they tick 6 times into 7 after the change from update 30. So Templar got a little bit of something, Necromancer not so much, Warden, Sorcerer not so much compared to Dragonknights and Nightblades. Let me know what you guys think about these changes down in the comments below. I'm always interested to kind of see and read what you guys feel or think about these changes. But overall, classes next patch, definitely interesting. I think a lot of people will start playing or trying out Nightblade and Dragonknight again, as opposed to kind of just sticking with the same classes for the past some patches. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to just watch and hang out. But yeah, thanks for Nerfs and chilling. Stay safe, have fun, and see you guys next time.